going off script this week. I don't have a guest. I don't have any notes. I have been dealing with a combination of writer's block, but really more of an ego trap situation where I have done a couple of these episodes and I have been hemorrhaging subscribers, worse than I thought that I would, actually. So I had an idea that venturing into this would lose me some subscribers and cut my list a bit. And I have lost a lot of people. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people have been fleeing the ship, which is interesting. So I don't know who's still around and who is still listening. And I don't know what you want to hear or what you want to hear more of. But of course, the entire point of this entire project is that I'm just talking about what I want to talk about. And I'm not doing some kind of analytics driven talk to the audience that you have sort of thing. That may prove to be very stupid. It's certainly not what is recommended in the space, but I do have lots of things that I'm thinking about all the time that I'm applying experimentally in my own life, and that I think are of interest to at least a few of you. So that's what I'm going to talk about. It is, of course, New Year's week. I am recording this just a couple of days after New Year's Day, and everyone is sort of in that frame of mind, that resolution setting. It's time to make change. It's time to finally get our act together and do the thing that we've been wanting to do for a very long time, whether that is health related or about our job or about relationships, etc. This is just the sort of mood of the moment that we're in. And I like New Year's. I like the idea of resolutions. I've always liked it. I'm not one of these people who's going to sit here and nitpick the idea of, it's not the real New Year, although it's not, but that's a whole separate conversation. Every day is a new year, and it's silly to have a ritual around making resolutions and making plans for the coming year. I think it's really useful. I think it's an important moment to check in with ourselves and to kind of take inventory of what's working and what's not working, and to make some kind of plan for where we're going and what we're up to in the next year. I like that context and that opportunity that New Year's can give us. Not that every day doesn't have that opportunity, but New Year's kind of forces us to look at it and have the conversation with ourselves. I only had one resolution last year. That was to plant 365 trees. I stopped keeping track at some point, but I'm quite sure that I met that resolution and then some. I planted a lot of trees last year. This year is different. This year is more subtle. It's more of a shift in philosophy than a particular objective. It comes with many potential opportunities to put it into action, and it's also pretty terrifying, but I think it's very important and something that I am, in its own perverse way, sort of looking forward to. And that is shifting from something that I've been advocating for myself, for clients, sort of broadly for a long time, this whole idea of be a potted plant and find the environment that is best suited for you. This has been an article of faith of my personal psychological well-being philosophy for years now, and I have followed that advice myself and given it to many people. And this year, I'm experimenting with something different, which is to kind of do the opposite of that, to essentially look for places in life to be uncomfortable, to embrace discomfort as a means of growth and change. I think it is maybe the only, but certainly the most potent way that we can meaningfully grow and change. We've all seen the kind of refrigerator magnet, life is lived at the edge of your comfort zone. And there is real truth in that. I am increasingly convinced. But I also think that most of us are living in a paradigm, whether it's driven by kind of evolutionary psychology paradigm or not, of keeping ourselves pretty comfortable, of not pushing ourselves past the point of a well, this is the whole idea with trigger warnings and safe spaces, and that's this idea taken to an extreme. But even within mainstream psychology, the whole idea of boundary setting, of the ways in which we, what will you tolerate and what won't you tolerate in a relationship or a job, there's a lot of language around something that is actually very similar to what we call the potted plant approach. And the overarching modality of that is that if things are not working, you exit the scene and you find a better situation. So I'm not saying that's not appropriate in some cases. I'm the first person who's going to tell people to leave a genuinely abusive relationship, for example. A genuinely shitty job situation where you've worked through a lot of your emotions about it and it's still just this untenable, micromanaging, terrible scene. I've been there many times. I'm not going to tell anybody to stay in that environment for their own good. But I think in the place of discomfort where we run into these kinds of scenarios, to embrace, really to lean into the trigger, the what is coming up for us that is so uncomfortable, that is a really rich place for investigation into who we are and what we're about. And it's also the exact zone where if we are going to change our habits and grow beyond them, that's where it's going to happen. So it's an interesting dance between our essential nature and what sort of situations are best for our nature and those places that we find ourselves that are reflective of our fears and our addictions and our habitual patterns that are keeping us comfortable and afraid to push ourselves into something uncomfortable, but that really might ultimately be better for us. I think the idea that I have gotten from evolutionary psychology that I sort of overly simplified for myself was this idea that if things in my life are not working for some reason, then they are fundamentally unchangeable. People are unchangeable. I am unchangeable. And therefore, my only option is to exit stage left. I think that has really given me a pass for avoiding some important work in my own existence, work that I was very delighted to have an excuse to continue to delay. And again, it's not that work is going to be appropriate in every single case where we feel uncomfortable or we are in a situation that's not great for us, but developing and exercising the discernment to tell which of those situations is which is something that I have been very happy to have an excuse to avoid. And it is something that this year I am recommitting myself to learning more about and improving. The core metaphysical assumption of something like evolutionary psychology is that we are kind of just flotsam and jetsam metaphysically in life, and that what happens to us is really just a function of luck and situational fortune. And so I think something like the potted plant paradigm works very well if that is your core metaphysical assumption, because how else are you going to optimize your circumstances? That definitely is the correct answer if your understanding of the universe is that it is effectively random. And what is happening for me is that I no longer see the universe as essentially random, and I no longer see myself as this piece of flotsam tossed upon a turbulent sea of reality. I see things. I don't have a great way to understand what is going on, but I feel very deeply that it is not just this random materialist ontology upon which evolutionary thinking is premised, most of it. So that has been this little crisis point for me of realizing if my core metaphysical assumptions are incompatible with optimizing my life in that particular way, then what is a better way of optimizing my life that is more in line with my changing core metaphysical assumptions? And that is really just a fancy way of saying, core metaphysical assumptions being, what do you understand the nature of reality to be? And my current understanding or my feeling about reality is that it is more intelligent and responsive than that in ways that I don't fully understand. But I have gotten to the point where it feels necessary to experiment with that intelligence and responsiveness in a different way than just running away when I feel scared, when I feel uncomfortable, when I don't want to. It's really about zeroing in on the moments that I don't want to and finding a way to, if not do it anyway, to at least be very, very present with what's coming up for me when I don't want to. I think a really ideal existence skillfully blends these two approaches and uses them interchangeably when appropriate. And I don't want to oversimplify anything and say in every case where you hit a wall, where something is not working, where you have some triggers that are coming up for you, it's time to get out and move on and figure something else out. That is not always the right solution, nor is it always the right solution to stay present and to try to work things out and to feel your way through things. There's a blended hybrid approach here that is able to really be much more present in the situation that is unfolding in front of us and practicing something that is closer to a really deep awareness of that situation and having kind of both of those alternatives open. And the second alternative, the alternative of presence and particularly of emotional presence. So I have this whole long history in Buddhist world of detached awareness kind of presence. That is not a particularly emotional practice. It's another way of exiting. It's a way of kind of taking yourself out of the fray and watching it as if you were this floating witness. At least I'm speaking for the Buddhist traditions that I was part of. I've gotten criticism for speaking broadly for Buddhism before, but for the traditions that I was trained in and part of, that's the vibe, that you sort of are getting yourself into this witness space of your own life, and it's a very emotionally detached place to be. That feels to me at this point more related to a potted plant kind of approach than what I'm talking about, which is get very deeply in touch with what's happening emotionally. Don't look away from it. Don't compartmentalize it. Don't try to explain it away, but actually feel your way through the situation. So that is something that is experimental and new for me. So that is why it gets filed under New Year's resolutions, because it's something that I feel intuitively can be very productive and helpful in navigating some difficult terrain, but it's something I can't say for sure is going to achieve that for me because I don't have a lot of experience with it, and in fact have spent my entire life finding ways to avoid doing exactly that. So this is one of those times where I'm gonna be putting this into practice as much as possible, a radical honesty practice being core to the whole endeavor, because nothing gets you uncomfortable quicker than a radical honesty practice. I can tell you that. And then we'll see how this goes. We'll see how it feels. We'll see how it changes my perception of a lot of situations and a lot of difficulties that I am trying to navigate through. And a lot of those are they're things that have come up in one form or another throughout my life. So I can put my little potted plant in the right circumstances, but it turns out the same cold front is coming for the potted plant in the new location that came for it in the old location. And so I feel pretty deeply that there is a better way to approach a lot of these kinds of situations. As ever, with this, like everything else that I'm talking about on this show and elsewhere, I'm offering it with a giant disclaimer. I'm not saying abandon all of these principles, embrace these principles, this is the way to live, everyone follow me, let's do this now. I really am an advocate for throwing all the spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks and taking what works and letting individual discernment do that work, because we're all different. We all have different motivations. We all have different desires and needs in the process of understanding ourselves and our relationships and our issues. And so I am really just offering this little narrative of what I'm up to in case it resonates with people, in case this is, you find yourself in a similar situation and have a receptivity to experimenting with new ways of doing things in the same way that I find myself having that receptivity. And that's all. Happy New Year to everyone out there, no matter what you have planned and what you're up to. I would love to hear your resolutions and hear what's going on for you. And I will be back next week, possibly with another interview if the timing works out. Also, really open to suggestions for whatever anyone out there remaining on my mailing list, the few of you that remain on my mailing list, would like to hear about or would like to have a conversation about. Just shoot me an email and let me know, because I have lots of ideas myself, but some of them are going to take a little longer to cook than others. The guinea pigs are also getting very aggressive, so I think I need to go give them carrots. Have a lovely day, night, wherever you are, weekend, whatever's happening, and I will talk to you soon.